and welcome to the Football New South Wales Community Podcast. This episode features our referee panel event from the 2025 Female Football Week. Hosted by Lucy Saul, FIFA match officials Casey Reibelt, Emma Kocbek and Maddy Allum spoke about their pathways as referees and their experience being involved as part of the first all-female crew to officiate an A-League men's match. We hope you enjoy this episode.
Thank you again everyone for being here for Female Football Week. First up in our panel we have Casey Reibelt. Casey is a distinguished and accomplished match official with a career spanning over 20 years, which started in Queensland when she started refereeing. Casey was one of 3 Australian match officials at the recent Women's World Cup hosted by Australia and New Zealand, where she refereed 2 group stage matches and 1 round of 16 as 4th official. Casey made her debut in the first season of the W League in 2008-2009 at just 20 years old. She became the second female referee to join the ranks of the Men's A-League men's referees in 2022. In 2014, Casey received her FIFA badge and has been involved in several FIFA Youth World Cups, as well as the Women's Asian Cup in 2014, 18 and 2022, where she refereed the final between China and South Korea. Next, we have Maddy Allum. Maddy is an assistant referee who started refereeing within Canterbury Referees Association. She rose through the ranks, joining the Football New South Wales Referees Academy before being selected on the A-League Women's panel for the 2021-22 season. In 2022-23, she was appointed as assistant referee for the A-League Women's Grand Final, and in 2024, she was appointed to the FIFA International Referees list. In 2024, she featured in the AFC Women's Champions League, including a quarter-final match, and in 2025 debuted in the A-League men's competition as both an assistant referee and a video match official. We have Emma Kocbek. Emma started refereeing with Nepean Referees Group, joining the Football New South Wales Referees Development Panel and Referees Academy. She was selected on the A-League Women's panel in 2018-19. In 2024, Emma was assistant referee in the A-League Women's Grand Final and was added to the FIFA International Referees list. Internationally, Emma has also officiated on the AFC Women's Champions League and domestically debuted on the A-League men's competition as both an assistant referee and video match official this season. On January 1st, 2025, Casey, Emma and Maddy, along with Beck as 4th official, Kate as VAR and Joanna as assistant VAR, featured as part of the first all-female crew to officiate an A-League men's match. We will hear more about this match tonight, but first let's start at the beginning. We thought it would be fitting to show some photos from the early years of Casey, Maddy and Emma. Could each of you give us a quick recap of how and why you started refereeing? Maybe explaining the photos we have up here.
Yeah, okay, I'll start off. Yes, that's me. My picture's on the left there. This picture, I'll explain the photo first maybe. So this was maybe my 3rd year of refereeing, I think. I would have been 18 years old, and this was my first ever men's senior match. So it was like they called it metro level. It was like community football, I think maybe level 5 or 6 or something. I was lucky enough to do that game with my younger but taller brother. So on the left is my brother Jared. So he refereed as well. And my dad was a referee too, but that's not my dad. I used to cop a lot of criticism about my hair along the way. I was known for having some pretty outrageous haircuts along my career, especially as a junior referee. So working on my image has always been something I've kind of struggled with a bit. How did I start refereeing? I started when I was 15 years old. The way I got into it was my cousin was actually a referee, and we were both playing at the time, and he just sort of said, I'm getting all this money from doing refereeing, you should try it out. And so I was like, okay. Like, I didn't have a part-time job at the time, and I thought it's just a good way to earn some money, and I liked playing, so I thought I'll give this a bit of a go. I also used to sometimes do the line for my brother's matches. And so I thought, oh, this is kind of fun. So that was how I initially started. And then I just found maybe after 2 or 3 seasons that I enjoyed refereeing much more than I did playing. And so then I stopped playing pretty early. I think I was only 17 when I decided I preferred to referee, and I was going to focus on refereeing from that time. And yeah, it's taken me to some pretty awesome places. And I think something I remember early on at my very first course that I went to, the guy who was running it, I think I was the only girl at the course at the time, and he just came over to me and he said, oh, you know, refereeing's really good, that we don't have as many women involved, so there's a lot of opportunities. And I was like, oh, okay, like what? And he said, oh, well, if you become a FIFA referee, because he wasn't a FIFA referee, but he knew a lot of FIFA referees, and he said, well, you can travel the world, and you can fly business class, and you can do these high-level matches. And I thought, oh, wow. Not something I'd ever imagined you could do as a referee. It was not something I kind of thought about as a pathway. And so from that very first course that I took, I think it just sort of sparked something in me, just a curiosity, something maybe I wanted to get involved in. But yeah, that's how I started off.
I'll speak next, because if we're looking at bad hairstyles, we can see, I wish I could say that I was like young, like 12, 13, and this was a mistake, but I was 18 years old in that photo. And I had that haircut for well over a year, so I maintained that. I'm in the middle. My little brother is on the left, you're right, and he was also a referee. And this is actually just outside the Learning Centre. This was at I think a state cup or a Champions of Champions grand final. And was kind of the first time that I had done something for Football New South Wales. And looking back now, looking at that photo, I'm not really sure what they managed to see in me, but they saw something. So I started with Nepean Referees Group out west. I started as a game leader on small-sided games with my local club. At the time, I did it because I was playing, me and my brother were playing, so we were at the fields pretty much all day. And my local club offered me like $10 a game and a free sausage sizzle to do the game leading. And I was like, hell yeah, this is the best thing ever. It was the worst thing ever. I got abused so much in small-sided games. But someone did see me and asked if I wanted to do the full course, and I did. And that's where it kind of all started from there. And it's funny you say, Casey, that you had, you know, someone quite early on say to you there was a lot of opportunities, because I remember at one of our branch meetings, we had Sarah Ho and Chris Griffith-Jones come and present to us, and I don't really remember much else from the meeting except Sarah talking about her career. And that was kind of the first time, like, as a referee, I went, oh yeah, there is like a lot of opportunities there. And it kind of sparked something in me as well to go, I kind of want to see how far I can take this, and whether it's something that can get me to places like Sarah. And so to be able to kind of come full circle with that, and now having worked with Sarah on the A-League Women's and things like that, it's pretty special. So yeah, that's how I started. Maddie, over to you.
Yeah, I'll explain the photo first. But so in the middle is Maggie Price, who's also an A-League Women assistant referee. And the left to your right is my sister. And that photo was from it was the first time there was an all-female match official crew on our local Premier League. So it's kind of funny that, I mean, I haven't been able to escape this photo, but it's kind of funny that we're using it now in this presentation, and we have our game to talk about later. So so I started 10 years ago now. My sister actually started refereeing the year before me. It was never something that I kind of considered. I was quite reluctant to start refereeing. But yeah, after watching Soph run lines for a year, I thought it didn't actually look that hard. So I've learnt a lot since then. But I decided to take up the course, and I actually really enjoyed it. But I found that I actually hated being in the middle. I found it just quite uncomfortable. So I told them not to give me any games in the middle until I was ready. So never kind of escaped that, to be honest. But yeah, and then for me, I think it was a few years, maybe like 3 years, I just spent doing local games, and I really enjoyed just kind of being at football fields like all all day, like all weekend, and I didn't actually know that there was probably opportunities beyond that, because it was never, probably because I didn't have, like, it wasn't until I spoke to women like Maggie at training that I kind of realised that there were possibilities beyond that. And I remember she came to my first state titles, and it's quite funny that you mentioned Sarah, because she comes in as well. She was at the same state titles, and I remember hearing about her career from the other girls before she rocked up. She was a day late, and the other girls were kind of, to me it kind of sounded quite intimidating, like her career, like she'd been to all these World Cups and everything, and I think a few girls were saying, like, you don't want her coaching you because she's, you know, she's got really high expectations and she's been to World Cups and all this. And so I remember being so terrified of her. It's funny because now I remember her walking up, like, the driveway, and the first thing I thought was, like, how short she was. I was like, why are people so scared of her? Like, but then it was one kind of debrief after the game that kind of changed that perspective, and then 1 week of being coached by her, that I probably started to realise what was possible, and so that's my journey.
Well, besides a free sausage sizzle or flying business class, what were your goals when you started refereeing, and what steps did you take to get there?
I can start this one. I like the contrast between, I was just happy with the sausage sizzle and Casey was chasing business class flights. My goals, I think, pretty early on, thanks to people like Sarah, I had quite lofty goals, and my branch, Nepean Referees Group, had just started up. The first year I had started refereeing as well, so they had pretty big ambitions for their match officials as well, so they were very supportive of me, and really wanted to give all of us the opportunity to succeed. So pretty early on, I knew I wanted to get onto the A-League men's panel. I was just like, I'll go A-League women's, and then I'll go A-League men's, and then I'll dominate the world. So I knew pretty early on that was kind of the goals for me. And I think when you're younger, you kind of think, oh, this is a goal I have, and maybe you think, oh, I could be ready for this in the future. And it's not until you start working towards it that you kind of realise how much work it takes, or how much effort has gone into other people's careers before you. You don't really realise until you make that step up of what the commitment is and what the sacrifices you have to make. But I think every time I've kind of progressed to the next level, whether it be Football New South Wales into RDP or into Academy, I think rising to that next level and seeing that challenge has always motivated me to push further again, because in my mind I go, well, if I can do this, then why can't I push myself further? Why can't I hit the next thing? So that's kind of always driven me forward towards my goals. And even now, having made it onto the A-League men's panel and kind of achieved a lot of things that we'll talk about today with that all-female crew, I still have pretty lofty goals for the future that maybe I won't say out loud because it's a bit scary to think I might jinx it, but there's still more things that I want to achieve, and I'm going to keep kind of working towards it. So hopefully that's enough time for someone else to think of their answer to that question.
You've inspired me, Emma. Thank you. I think mine was a little different because when I first started, there was no National League competition. There was no W League. There was none of that going on. So I guess early on in my career, my goals and ambitions were around just becoming a FIFA referee. So the way that sort of started was about 6 weeks into starting refereeing. I think I started mid-season and I'd been reffing for about 6 weeks, and someone must have seen me out of field or something, and they had a state titles competition on, and I think someone had pulled out. They were looking for somebody last minute to run some lines on Masters, and they had the Opens there at the same venue. And they called me up and said, hey, can you come down and fill in for this? And I was like, okay, sure, I'll come do that. And little did I know at that tournament was the likes of Tammy Ogston. If you don't know her, she refereed the Women's World Cup final from Australia in 2007 in China. Jackie Herford was there. She was at the 2011 Women's World Cup. So they were there, and I just remember watching them and going, oh, wow, like look at them go. And then that was the first time I learnt about what a FIFA referee was, and that was something you could aspire to. So I think it was from there I was like, oh, I want to be like them. I want to be a FIFA referee. And so then that was kind of where my ambitions started. And then from there, 2008, I think you mentioned it at the start, Lucy, was when the W League was brought in. And I was in a pretty fortunate position that because there was a lack of pathway before, there was this huge gap between where Jackie and Tammy were at an international level and then the people who were underneath. So what was happening was there was like juniors coming through, they'd get into the senior football, and then there was nowhere to go after that. And if you didn't become a FIFA referee, sometimes there was just not much else. And then along came the W League. So that's why I was so young when I started, I was 20 years old. It was because there was nobody between me and, you know, these really experienced referees, because there was no pathway before. So I got on to the W League from there, and kind of went up from there. But I think along my journey, what's kind of gotten me is like I love the challenge of refereeing, and always sort of trying to prove people wrong. And I think, refereeing in men's football, I think a lot of that's about me wanting to prove that we can do it and, prove people wrong.
I think when I started refereeing, I probably didn't have any goals, just because football was just enjoyment. I think, when my first memories of football were actually watching that 2007 Women's World Cup in China, and obviously there was an Australian referee on the final, and the following year, as Casey said, the W League started. So I followed that quite closely from that tournament, and then every sort of World Cup following that was quite iconic to me. But at that time, like, my dream was probably to be a Matilda or something, so not a referee at the World Cup. So I think once refereeing started, I didn't so much, as I said before, I didn't so much kind of realise that there were these possibilities. Like, you kind of think of these big dreams that you have as a kid. You don't realise that maybe there are other avenues you can take to get there, and it's not until you kind of meet people that I think you start to realise what is possible, and that you're capable of a lot more than you think. And probably continuously learning that as well. So when I did kind of I suppose probably from when the ball started rolling with like going to state titles, and then through Football New South Wales, and then onto the national panels, like having those goals of being FIFA firstly. The steps that I probably took, or what was important, was having people around me that I trusted, like mentors and Sarah, obviously, as we said, like just having people like that who could kind of be there throughout that journey, because it's not a journey that is kind of has a an upwards trajectory. Like, there's a lot of ups and downs, and there's, what's the quote I'm thinking of now is once you kind of scale that mountain, like, the air is quite thin at the top, so it's the challenge of it is trying to stay at that level. I think just setting up the right support network around you was really important. Having a level of belief in yourself, but also knowing that would be challenged along the way, and having kind of your strategies to bounce back from that as well. So I think there's in terms of kind of getting to those goals, there was a lot of kind of stepping stones that had to be in place for that to become the reality. That it kind of grows, like, now you get to FIFA, and then you have even bigger goals. So I think the same principles sort of apply from when you start to now you're on this new journey. So I've rambled a bit. I don't know what the question was anymore.
Thank you for the insight into where you all started. Now we'll move on to something a bit more recent. This game was historic for the league. Can you talk to us about the normal pre-game for you guys, both mentally and physically, and was it different for this game?
Mentally and physically, okay. I think preparation doesn't really change. I try and keep it consistent like throughout. Having a consistent routine is quite important just throughout the season. Maybe you kind of adjust a few things as you're tracking, but keeping things consistent is important mentally and physically. Probably my normal routine, I don't know, just, obviously ticking the boxes in terms of training, the physical prep, like recovery from training, kind of good sort of activation before the game. I don't know, something light in the morning, I don't know, a walk, just kind of making sure that you've done all the prep so that when you wake up on game day, you don't really have to think about anything. You know that you're ready. I think preparation's kind of a big thing for me, especially going into a season as well, not just one game. But for this game, I don't know. I don't think too much of that changed. You try and keep every game the same regardless of what it is. And also, I think I kind of found that, there'd been kind of enough women before me, like on the ALM, that this wasn't, although there were 3 of us, like the concept of having women on the ALM wasn't anything new, like it'd been done before. So I didn't kind of feel like I wanted to add anything extra to my routine to kind of, I guess mess with my preparation. So it's just keeping it as simple and straightforward as I can.
Yes, I agree with Maddie. Like, you want to have like a set routine for your matches. But to be quite honest, like, I get pretty anxious before games, and this game was like, I was just off the charts anxious. Because whether you like to admit it or not, it's historic, and there's that pressure that comes with an occasion like that. Because you want to go out there and you want to show everyone that, like, we're here on merit and we're here because we deserve to be here. So you certainly don't want to be going out there and sort of making mistakes or whatever. So I think I did feel a bit of that pressure, and there was a little bit of, I guess, noise around the game. So like I was, and it was a good thing. It was a good thing. Like, there was promotion around it, and I had to do some interviews and things like that. But that sort of adds a bit, I think, to the pressure as well. So for me, for this game, it was about how can I get myself as calm as possible and not to be worrying too much about it. That was my focus. So doing things that relax me, and that's like going for a walk down at the beach. It's like listening to calming music. It's listening to podcasts that distract me. It's about me getting myself calm more than anything. And then what was something I did differently for this game? We actually had our pre-match a bit earlier than usual. So normally it's just like any other game. You would go to the game and then everyone arrives, and then in the change room before you warm up, you would do your pre-match. It's like any other level. But for this match, I knew that there was going to be a lot going on before the game. Like, there was people coming in wanting to talk to us. They had media coverage at the game, so there was someone following us with a camera all the time. So I was like, look, I just want us to be able to focus when we get there. So let's do our pre-match and talk about all this stuff that's going to happen before we get there. So the day before, I did like a Zoom call to do our pre-match. So that was something just a little bit different that I did, because I knew it was going to be like that on the day. And I think it could be like that in any sort of big occasion, whether it's a grand final that you're doing or whatever. It can be a bit crazy on the day, so it can be good to prepare like that.
I think for me, I've always been, even when I was kind of coming through even community like grassroots football, I was finding that I was getting really nervous before matches. So like to the point where I was feeling like physically ill before games at a community level. And I had to learn like quite early on how to manage that level of stress. And I think as a referee, it's pretty normal and it doesn't ever really go away. So when someone says they're nervous before a game, I don't I think that's important. I think it's necessary, and I don't think you ever fully escape it, but you kind of learn techniques to manage it and harness it in kind of an effective way. And so I think for me, managing that kind of anxiousness before matches is the way I do it is I don't really think about the game too much in the lead up. Someone will say like, how are you feeling for your game? I'll be like, I haven't thought about it. I might think about, like team tactics and stuff like that. I might have a look at kind of where things are sitting in the league, but I don't really let myself dwell on it until the day of the match. So I think for most matches, I try not to kind of dwell on it in the lead up, regardless of whether it's a big match or not, and just nailing those little things like making sure that I get enough sleep, hydrating in the week in the lead up and things like that. Doing all kind of like the little tricks like compression gear and making sure you've got enough caffeine and protein and blah, blah, blah. I hear giggles because I do love a cheeky Red Bull pre-game. But I think for this one, like Casey said, there was a bit of noise around it. So it was kind of inevitable that we had to focus on it a bit more in the lead up. But I just tried to channel that more into excitement for the match and what it meant for not necessarily us. Like obviously it was a big game for us. And I think the biggest thing that's come out of it as a learning for me is the effects of that game will probably be felt much further in the future. Even now, sometimes on games, like a ball kid will be quite excited to see me. They'll be like, oh my God, we've got a girl. Like, what? Like the players and everyone have accepted it, but it's the kids. Like my nephew's first game coming to watch was one with me on it. So for them, it's completely normal to have women on men's matches. So I think that's kind of the biggest thing for the game was realising this might have a bigger effect than us later on down the track and just kind of reconciling that with we need to do a good job today. So I hope that answered the question.
Now that we understand how you guys prepare for the game, let's take a look at the behind the scenes of the game. In these clips, we can hear the VAR. How have you found transitioning between the leagues and the differences in players and processes in the VAR? Maybe I'll get Casey to start as a centre referee.
Yeah, I think as you can hear, like maybe there's a lot less talking than what you expected. We try to keep it really clear and concise because there's so many people on the line. You've got the VAR team, you've got the fourth official, the on-field, everything. If everyone's kind of giving information, it gets messy. So we want to keep it to the essentials. So that's why you only heard like short, sharp things being said, the really important information. So that's the first thing when you're working with VAR. Second thing is you need to describe like all of what you're seeing. So you'll see that I don't just give the foul. I always kind of give an explanation as well, like, oh, he's just challenging for the ball and he got it wrong. It's just careless. I'm not going to give anything else. So that way when the VAR goes to check that situation, they know what you've seen and whether you need to see it again. And then like in terms of processes, obviously with VAR, you've got delay with offside, and the girls will talk about that a bit more. And then obviously if you have to go and do a review, I think I showed the process of a review in that first video. You've got to go to the screen and then make a decision again. So I think in terms of my approach to refereeing, like I almost take it like a challenge. Like I want to get through the whole game and not have to use the VAR. I want to be better than the VAR. So that's my challenge. I don't want to use it. I want to nail it on field. That's the aim always.
Maddie, what's your experience with VAR as an assistant referee?
I think there's a few things to it. Like, obviously, the communication firstly that Casey was talking about. It's something that you can practice, but you don't. So there are so many situations that can happen in football that sometimes you just learn things as you go, which you just kind of have to be ready and accept those lessons when they come. It's about kind of being prepared and kind of knowing, I guess, what to expect a little bit with the VAR, like having another voice that isn't sort of on the field, like on your first game. That's kind of the weird thing. I think, just as well, like you can't really hide anything with VAR, like especially when you've got more cameras, like compared to the ALW, like you've only got 2 cameras, like things can kind of go unnoticed, like offsides can be missed, but no one will care, like no one will know. Whereas like with VAR, everything just feels like it's recorded. So I find like the whole process of watching your games back actually quite difficult, because now you've got like, I don't know how many angles, like you've got 4 or 5, I don't know, 5 cameras or something like that. Now you have all these cameras to look at. You've got your comms as well, and it's a little bit overwhelming to have like all of this to look at. So that's another aspect of it that I find, it's new, but it's also, it helps you improve and grow, because those resources you don't have access to as much on the ALW. I think, we mentioned the delay stuff. I think when I practiced it a little bit before, just watching games, so that helped, but the same thing, you don't really get the feel for it until you're on the field and you're actually like doing a delay. And sometimes you're kind of just waiting for that delay to happen, but it might not happen in a game. It's not maybe as difficult as I thought it would be, but at the same time, you kind of have to be ready for mistakes to happen, and situations that you're not ready for will happen. So it's a bit of a learning in process kind of thing, but it's also nice to go out onto the field and know that you've got that safety net, and a mistake that you make it's not going to be game changing because you've got that safety net. So there's some comfort in it, but I think it's not kind of fearing all the cameras and the comms and everything. It's all there for the good of the game kind of thing. So
Emma, do you have any advice for referees who are trying to do both men's and women's in their own leagues?
So I think when you talk about kind of transitioning between the men's and the women's league, it's like asking, like, would you referee Central Coast Mariners versus Western United the same as you would referee Wanderers versus Melbourne Victory? Like, regardless of whether you're going between a men's and a women's competition, you're always going to take each game as its own game. I think the games are different. There are differences between the men's and the women's leagues at all levels, whether that's kind of the types of fouls that you see more often. Sometimes the build-up play is a bit different. Sometimes the relationships you can build with players is different. But at the end of the day, I think if you are kind of in either space and looking to do both or looking to transition from one to the other, I think you've just got to be conscious that you're going to have a bunch of tools and tactics that you use as a match official, and some of them will work in some games and some of them won't work in other games. And I think if you get too caught up in thinking, oh, well, because I'm refereeing women's this weekend, I can't, I want to do X, Y, and Z, but on Sunday I'm going to go into a men's match, so I'm going to do X, Y, and Z differently. I think you just kind of have to use the tools that you have that are going to best apply for that situation, regardless of whether it's men's or women's football.
Now that we've looked at the past and the present, let's take a look into the future. So, what are some of the most significant changes for female match officials you've seen over your careers? How would you like them to stay the same and or develop?
I've been around the longest, so I'll go first. I mean, there's been huge changes. Obviously, when I first started, we didn't even have a women's league at all at a national level. So there was that. So I never had that visibility of, I guess, role models initially, just the FIFA referees that I knew from Brisbane, from where I was. I guess, seeing, I guess the first big thing for me was seeing the 6 female match officials at the Men's World Cup. Like, that was just something I never imagined that I would see, and it happened. And now it's just becoming more and more common. Like, we've got, again, a female trio at the Men's Club World Cup coming up soon. Tori Penso is going to be at that with her team. So I think, that's a big thing, is seeing women in the elite space. I think as well, like, you're seeing that all the way through the pathway. So I guess when I came through nationals, girls went to the girls' nationals and boys went to the boys' nationals, and that was just kind of how it was. But now we've got girls who are going through that men's pathway now. They're going to boys' nationals. We've got some of the guys who go to the girls' nationals as well. So I think it's really opened up a lot of opportunities. So definitely there's more women in the elite space than I ever imagined there would be. And I think it's just going to continue to grow.
Emma?
As I've kind of come through, I've been able to see a lot more kind of that top level change with like parental policies. We saw people like Kelly Jones, Sarah Ho, Lara Lee have been able to have children, have families and come back to the game. And to think that, you know, these policies didn't exist 10 years ago, they didn't even exist 5 years ago, right? And it was such a barrier for women coming through to be able to get to that elite level and stay there with these kind of competing priorities. And I think we're seeing more and more of that understanding of kind of that institutional barriers that have affected female match officials. And now we're slowly starting to see them kind of be changed or policies be put in place, or people who understand them more so coming to the table, or like just having women, you know, on boards and committees actually voicing what the issues are, and being able to have that change has been, to see it unfolding, I think is really positive. And I think I said it in the video as well, is that I really do think that female match officials have a really positive effect on football, and it's better for the game, but it is better for the game. The more diversity we can get out there, the better football is going to be for everyone. And if we can make being a match official more accessible, then, you know, everyone kind of wins in football. So, yeah.
Yeah, I think I would echo what they said as well. But I think the Stephanie Frappart's game, I think, stood out to me as quite a defining moment because, yeah, like Casey said, like it's something you just never would have expected. And the amount of courage that it would have taken for Stephanie to be kind of standing on the pitch in the biggest tournament in the world, and she's kind of unavoidably the centre stage there, which I think it's such a iconic moment. But also, like, one thing that has been really positive, I think, as well, is with women, I think women and girls coming through in football, it's so important to have like that kind of peer group and also feeling of togetherness and leadership when in terms of like the learning and education of girls coming through. So even just having events like these and having more women that you can turn to at training, but at your own kind of branch training, like, you know, when there's a room full of guys and men that, you know, sometimes just being able to turn to a woman, it's, I don't think you realise the possibilities at the time, but like what we said with us, like 5-10 years down the track you will, because now we're having these conversations and we're having these events where, you know, we have, you know, a whole heap of you turn up. I don't know if there were events like this when I started, so that is a change in itself, and I think growing that kind of feeling of, that community, I guess, it makes such a difference for girls coming through, and I think you see it in droves now that there are so many more that aspire to this level as well, so that's the impact I've sort of seen.
Well, there's a lot of young referees in this room. What advice do you have for them, or what advice would you give your younger self?
Okay, I'll go. To be brave, no. Mine was, I think that I was pretty hard on myself early on. If I made mistakes or made a mistake in a game, I think now, after having made many, many, many mistakes, and I continue to make mistakes, I know now that there'll be another game next weekend and I'll come out and I'll bounce back. I think early on I felt like it was a bit like the end of the world, and I'd worry and stress when I'd made a big mistake. So I think, be less harsh on myself, and I'm going to make mistakes. That's what I'd say to my younger self.
I think someone probably told me this when I was coming through, and I still kind of have to remind myself, but football and refereeing in particular, there's so many things that you can't control. You don't get to pick, you know, your games. You don't get to get the final say on whether you're on a final. There's so many factors that are just always going to be influenced by other people. You could have, you know, the best season of your life, but if someone else's season is a bit better, they're going to get ahead of you. So something that I always try and keep with me, and if someone talks to me about it as well, is there's only, like, you can just focus on what you can control. There's no point kind of worrying, okay, this person's got X amount of games, or why have they been given this game over me? Because every second that you spend putting energy into that is energy that you're taking away that you could put into things that you can focus on, your own training, your own development, just even your own matches. So I think I try and say this as well to our juniors coming through, but you really just need to focus on what you can control and don't let the other stuff creep into your thought process, because you'll start tripping yourself up pretty quickly, and comparison will, like, if you try and compare yourself to other people and their journeys, it's gonna be a really hard battle for you. So just focus on what you can control, and I think that will be a good starting point.
Yeah, I think I'd probably go on like the theme of like not so much fearing mistakes as well. Like I think sometimes I guess from my experience, I can find that maybe I internalize a lot of things, and that leads to probably making or feeling like you're making mistake after mistake after mistake, and then just that feeling of like even decisions that are in your control, you're getting wrong. And as a referee, like when you sort of lose trust in yourself, like that is quite a scary place to be. I know it's quite a simple thing to say, is like the solution is just to come back to yourself and just be more confident. But it's hard to kind of find that within a week and rebuild yourself in a week when you've got a whole season ahead of you. So I think what I try to remind myself of now, and what I think maybe younger referees can take away, is sort of no matter what, like football is this privilege, and it's a privilege in the way that you get to meet amazing people, and you get to travel to amazing places, and you get to have these amazing experiences. And there's no pressure in any of that. And as long as you're just I think as long as you can just make good decisions and be a good person, at the end of the day, it's, I think that's, it's the whole the journey, not the destination. But like, I think it's true, because you know, you could get so far, but if you kind of fall short of your goals, obviously that's going to hurt, so you need to be able to bounce back. And I think what I've realized is, as long as you can kind of come back to yourself and appreciate and celebrate the opportunities that you get, then I think that's tenfold over the achievements at the end of the day. So.
Unfortunately, that is all we have time for tonight. Thank you again for everyone for attending. Thank you, Casey, Maddie and Emma, for speaking about your experiences.